like I was saying before I had to restart my recording, um, I had such an urge to record today, right now, that I don't even know what I'm about to talk about, which is not unusual for me. It's not the first time that I've said that. Probably won't be the last time, but you know, I wanted to record. I felt creative. I feel productive. I'm in pretty good spirits right now, I guess, for once. Um, First things first. What did I want to say? I know I wanted to say. For some reason, I had a random thought about Malcolm X a minute ago, and I don't know why. It was just. I mean, it happens. It happens all the time. He's one of the major influences in my journey as a man, becoming a man. Especially when I was in my early 20s, late teens, looking into like black leaders and stuff like that. Um, Even to this day, even though my political stances and my political identity is morphing before my own eyes, a lot of my thoughts and beliefs still align with a lot of the work that he did and the things that he believed in. So I guess I just wanted to take this, second to kind of highlight one of my heroes, Malcolm X. I posted this picture in my Instagram stories, but I overlaid it with a quote that he said that always stuck out with me because it was such a eerie, like, kind of, what's the word? Like, pretty ominous thing that he said. He was talking to a reporter. I believe they asked him about did he fear. I think they asked him something like, "Did he fear being killed, or did he fear retaliation from the Nation of Islam for outing Elijah Muhammad and stuff for his scandals?" And he said, "I'm a man who believes that I died 20 years ago. I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything." And while I don't always live that way, uh, a large portion of my life, I feel that way. Like walking around feeling like, I kind of feel like as a man, a part of it's like one of our rites of passage is to sort of like accept that suffering is a part of our journey. I said it in plenty of songs, in different ways. I've said it in plenty of my songs, all over my social media. I've said things like that, and I believe that wholeheartedly. I feel like as a man, suffering is a part of it, right? Suffering is something you can't avoid. I'm not talking about, I'm not saying women don't suffer. That's not what I'm saying. For anybody who's interested in counteracting my point or arguing and making it a woman versus man thing. All I'm saying is, as a man, the only experience that I am knowledgeable of, in this lifetime, as a man, I feel like suffering is a part of it. There is no avoiding it. Suffering is how we get from point A to point B, whatever point B is, whether it's death or awakening or whatever that might be to you, right? Suffering is a part of it. Heartbreak, loneliness, feeling largely uncared for in the world, that is something that men largely go through. And the only way that sometimes, all of us are different, but the only way I have found to cope with a lot of those realities is accepting death, even while you're alive. Accept death. Accept the fact that this is the world that we live in, and you have two options. You can bitch up and cry and fold and, tuck your tail and be a coward, or you can stand tall through this shit, live, and take care of your family despite the fact that you feel largely unseen, largely uncared for, not all the time and not by everybody, but I'm saying by the world at large. Men don't care about men, for sure. I expect a man to kill me before I expect a man to see if I'm all right. A stranger? Absolutely. That's been my experience in this world that I live in. You know, whether it's America or Detroit or the world at large, we are hostile towards each other. We show very little concern for each other. One could argue that that is a result of the world that men have built. And by the quotations, I mean, this world was built, the world, this capitalistic, you know, everything is determined by money world that we live in, was largely built by white men, the modern world at least. You know, you could argue, especially if you know anything about history, you could argue that dictators ranging back 5,000 years could have contributed to the state that we are currently in. And they're of all colors: Asian, Africans, Moorish, Spanish, European, French leaders that have all contributed. You know, it was all a drop in a bucket to get this large bucket of bullshit that we have now. But the current modern world that we live in, this capitalistic society, this capitalistic America that we live in, was built by racist white men, right? This whole archetype, all of America, was built by racist white men. I'm saying not literally built, not physically built, but I mean designed in its spirit. You know what I'm saying? So we are here suffering the reality of this world that we did not build or that we did not choose. We built it with our hands, black men and colored people. We built it with our hands, but we did not choose and design it to be what it is. But regardless of those facts, we are still responsible for picking up our nuts and deciding to survive, live on, do what needs to be done, regardless of the pain that comes with walking through this shit. It does not matter. My children still have to eat today. These bills still have to be paid because I enjoy my luxuries of having these lights on. I just spent the last 2 days with no power because we had a storm here in Detroit, and it knocked out the power. Well, it knocked out my power for about 35 hours. But there are other people right now who do not have power because of this storm that happened 3 days ago. Today is Saturday, July 29th. It is about 3:36 p.m. And there are still people without power for like 2.5 days now, right? So as a man, I decided I like having electricity. This is amazing. It's comfortable. It's convenient. I can browse the internet. I can record a podcast. I can, work. I could work remotely and all of those sorts of things that makes life so much easier than it used to be, right? I enjoy these luxuries. I like having my fan and my air conditioning on. I like having a refrigerator that keeps my food from going rancid, So if you decide that you enjoy those luxuries, those amenities, and you want to maintain your way of life, then you have to stand up and push through this pain. Now, I'm not here to talk about what women's experience is. My belief in general is that humans are here. My father's belief is that we are all servants. That's the only reason we're here. We're here to serve each other. This is what my father's been telling me all my life. We are merely here as servants to serve God first, but secondary, each other. We are to help each other. We are to do things with and for each other. We choose partners so that we can go through this life because it's easier with someone that you love and get along with and see the world in similar ways as. It makes life easier to do, correct? But my belief is that the human condition is suffering. I don't know who said that. that famous quote, but it is true. We all suffer. So I'm not saying only men suffer, but I am saying the way that men suffer is unique because men are men and women are women. And the way that we walk through this world and the way the world relates to us has to be different because we are different. You know, I would imagine a woman goes through life suffering in ways like being overlooked, maybe being counted out for certain things, being physically less capable than most men. That's the average, you know, that's the baseline. Most women are less physically capable, so they are to walk a different path than we are. You know, we work physical jobs and manual labor and we till the fields. I'm not saying women don't do those things, but I am saying historically more men have done more physical and dangerous and work than women have in terms of physicality. Men have fought 99.9% of the world's of the wars in the world. We have also caused most of the wars in the world. I ain't never caused no war. I'm just a person that didn't ask to be here, and I am here. And these are the facts. You know what I'm saying? A woman's journey is vastly different than that of a man's. It doesn't mean one is more valuable than the other, not in my opinion, because women have their value and men have their value, right? But I am saying the only one that I can speak to from a first-person perspective is a man's struggle. There's a video going around the internet right now, and everybody's making little stitches to it or whatever, about there's a woman that transitioned into a man, and now they are living the man experience for the first time, obviously. And she is in the video crying, first of all, and explaining how shocking the adjustment to the man's experience it is for this woman. You know, how shocking it is for her to adjust to it, right? I was talking about this yesterday. I saw a video of it. I put up something on my Instagram like a week ago talking about this. This woman decided that she was a man and then transitioned to look aesthetically like a man with a beard, probably went through, what do they call it? Like testosterone hormone therapy to have the physical attributes of a man. Her voice was even deep. She was wearing a hat. She was dressed like a man. But she just couldn't believe how lonely it felt being a man. I don't feel bad, but I don't really know how to feel because a part of me, well, I'll be honest. I laughed. I laughed hard. So did a lot of other people. You know why? Because it's almost validating. It's almost like confirmation that women don't truly know what it feels like to be on this side. Now, if you are mature enough and you can think critically enough to understand that I am not saying these things in contrary to anything, I am not making these points to say that our experience is heavier or more valuable or more important than a woman's. That is not my point. I don't want to say that again, so I'm just going to get that out the way now. The things that I'm saying is not in contrary to anything else. I am just speaking on the facts that are present on this side, the only side that I am on, right? The only side that I've ever walked. But it was confirmation to see a woman decide to present as a man and then walk the path of a man and then fold on the internet and cry and basically plead and say, I had no idea that this shit felt like this. I had no idea that it was this lonely. I had no idea that no one cared about men. You know, as a man, I've known this all my life. You know, I was born very quickly into my journey as a male in this life. I realized, I'm on my own. You know, now I'm not saying I don't have a mom. I have a mom. My mom loves me so much. That's not the point. The point that I'm actually making is that in a man's life, there's only a short list of people that truly, truly give a fuck about you. It's not a long list. I'm not saying we have no one to care, but I am saying it's not a lot of people. My mom cares a lot about me. My father cares a lot about me. My sister, I have cousins. I have a lot of cousins that love me, right? You know, that's like the default. If you're born into a family, the family probably loves you. In some men's case, like my father, barely, you know, even he didn't even have that. You know, he might have had his sisters might have had his back and cared about him. I don't know what they felt, but I wasn't there. But I do know the stories that my father has told me. He was on his own outside, not being looked after, being neglected very, very early on in his life. Granted, this was a different time, different socioeconomic climate. You know, it was a lot of different things going on in the 60s and 70s, right? But not much has changed in the way that the man is received and relates to the world. We are vastly uncared for, and I think it is because, one, we have learned, maybe through evolutionary means, to present and pose as if we don't need to be loved and cared for, which has maybe historically created this. I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. Do we act as if we don't need to be loved because we weren't loved? And we was like, well, you know, well, fuck it, I don't need it anyway. Or has the world related to us this way because we are men and we decided we don't need it, so the world has treated us as if we don't need it? I don't know which one came first. I wasn't here. You know, according to the Bible, it was Cain and Abel and Adam, right? Those are the first men. I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know if I believe that. But I do know that regardless of how that dynamic came to be, that dynamic is here. It is to be. You know, we have a very short list of people that care about us, which is why it's not easy for us to find good women in our lives, but once we do, we obsess over them. Because most of us as men, up until that point of falling in love and having someone in love with us and love us, especially if they're not related to us, it's like a different type of, it's like, wow, you don't even have any obligation to me, like through blood or like a lineage to love me, and you're choosing to love me. That makes it almost more valuable. When we get that, when we run into that, we almost either, one, can't believe it, or two, we obsess over it endlessly because it's like, wow, this woman loves me and no one ever has before. You know what I'm saying? That's our experience. That was my experience as a man. My first girlfriend, the first girlfriend that I ever had that showed me attention and gave me sex and wanted to talk to me every day, I couldn't believe it. I was young, but I could not believe it. It was unbelievable. Like, why do you care about me this much? And it's almost like I'm just realizing it now. It's like the reason why I was so blown away by that is because up until that point, I mean, almost 2 decades of my life, I'm like, bro, I'm walking through this earth, and the only people that really gave a shit about me was people that was related to me or my homeboys from high school or middle school or elementary school. They was the only ones that would call me and be like, you all right? Or buy me stuff from we go to the store, all that kind of stuff. But the way that I relate to the world is I walk around and mostly I am received as a man, as a boy, as a problem, a threat, something to be feared, by women, adults. That nigga probably trouble because he's a little black boy. That's how I related to the world up until you start to, as a young man, you start building your family outside of your family, out of your blood family. You start finding friends, good friends, whether female or male, and you start adding on to this family. Some people drop off over the years too. But I look back in retrospect, I'm 34, about to be 35 in a couple months. I have an extended family outside of my biological family that I had to painstakingly build through trial and error and just walking through this world afraid to meet people and being looked at as a potential threat, especially me. There's another layer to my experience because I'm a big, burly motherfucker. Bro, I don't know what's been going on lately, but I walk around lately and everybody is asking me, do I play football? Like, I haven't had this many people ask me this since I was in high school. I remember being in high school. I would walk into school. My friend just brought this up recently. We was talking. And he was like, nigga, do you remember all the football coaches used to harass you when you would come in? Like, I would walk in and the coach would literally walk up to me like, hey, I want you at practice, blah, blah, blah. Or, you don't play football? Damn, why you don't play football? You too big to not be playing football. And they would hound me like, and I'm like, nah, bro, I don't even fucking like football, right? But lately, like the last 2 months, everybody been asking me, do I play football again? I went to get some suits fitted yesterday. The little Jewish guy that was trying me on for suits was like, damn, you don't play football? Then I was I was out last night real late, walked into a gas station, and a guy that was mute, he couldn't even speak, looked at me and signed to me like, he was like, you play football? He was like he did this. He asked me, did I play football by signing, like he blew a whistle and like you don't play football? And I'm like, no. We had a whole conversation. This nigga can't even talk. Everybody was asking me, I've been getting that a lot from women. I walked into a strip club about a month ago, and the girl came, sat on my lap, and was like, what y'all doing here? It was like, you play football? I'm like, no. She was like, y'all football players? Y'all bouncers? When I was in France, walked into a shoe store, or where was I at? No. I was in New York, I'm sorry. When I was in New York, walked into a shoe store, the guy that was working security at the front of the shoe store, of course he's security, so he's pretty big. Me and 3 other of my homies walk in, and this dude is like, I seen him, I literally saw it before he said anything. He kind of like postured himself and was kind of like he was like, he like kind of got into his stance almost like he was ready or intimidated. I don't know. Like, oh shit, who is all these big ass niggas walking in here? I walk in, I'm 6'2", I'm with Quinn, he walks in with me. He's probably 6'2", 6'3". I don't know how tall Quinn is. I walk in with my homeboy Harden. He was a little shorter than me, but he's a pretty big guy. And my nigga D-Rick, who was shorter than me, but we all was big. It was like, we walked in, me and Quinn being the tallest, this nigga like, he ain't say nothing at first. He just postured. I saw it. I didn't say nothing either. And then eventually he said something to us like, man, y'all niggas bouncers or something, y'all security? And we like, nah, bro, we just shopping for shoes, bro. Bro, I get that everywhere I go. I'm sorry to go on this tangent, but the reason that I'm saying these things is to make the point about there's another layer in my experience as a man is the fact that I'm a big man, right? Now, it's like a few layers that we all have multiple layers in our experience as a human being. If you're a black man, maybe you're an ugly black man, or maybe you're a light-skinned black man, or maybe you're a really, really dark-skinned black man. You know, you have all these identifiers that changes and modulates your experience walking through this life. My particular set of experiences happens to be I'm a black man, I'm a light-skinned black man, and I'm a big-ass man. You know, I have a lot of weight on me, but I also have a frame from my family because even my uncles look like this. Big shoulders, big ass chest. We got wide hips and the shit. Like, we look like football players. Like, or just bouncers, security. That's what we look like by biology. I don't know, you know, what my grandfather was doing, but my experience as a man, you know, is one thing. Then I'm a black man. You add that on top of it, which adds a whole other layer and a dynamic to my experiences in this life. But then you add the fact that I'm 6'2", I'm almost 400 pounds, but it's like a 400 pounds that's kind of distributed pretty well, and I can still move this weight pretty well, like a football player. You look at a linebacker, they all 350, 6'4", whatever they weigh, whatever they measure up to in height, but they can move really fast, which is what makes them valuable as an athlete, dangerous as an athlete. That's my build. I've been working manual labor jobs, or I used to work manual labor jobs for about 11 years of my life, right? And people were always surprised, like, this is a big ass nigga. He's like really working pretty fast, pretty well, until I stopped giving a fuck. But at first, especially in my earlier days, when I was 18, first working, I was a pretty big guy and I was moving pretty well. So I've seen it affect people in multiple ways. My size sometimes draws people in, especially women. They like me because I'm a big teddy bear. They like the size difference. It appeals to some women. Some guys be like, oh, damn, they appreciate my size because they might be fans of football or they might have played football. But then there's a darker side to that. A white man might see me and be like, oh, that's a big dangerous nigga. Let me draw my gun when I pull him over. Or it'll make niggas say, well, if I get into it with this nigga, the first thing I'm going to do is shoot him because I'm not about to tussle with this big ass nigga. Or it'll make women go, you know, if they're not interested in me physically or they're not attracted to my size. Some women like smaller guys. They like niggas who are in shape. I don't give a fuck. It's not my problem. You know, it's not if it ain't for me, it ain't for me, right? So some women might be attracted to it, but then some women might look at me and be like, especially if it's like a white woman that's like from a different world than me, they might look at me and be like, oh, he's dangerous because this nigga got size. It's like, if I decided to be a predator or something, there's nothing she can do. So I'm looked at like I've had this size get a multitude of reactions from people all of my life. You know, all of my life. I've had it put me in situations where I needed to get the fuck on. I've been in positions where motherfuckers will embrace me and they love my size, especially black people, because we like football and we like sports and whatever. And then black women, because that's my, you know, that's my world. You know, I get a lot of positive response, or I get jokes and shit like that, you know what I'm saying? But as a bigger man, to lend to the discussion that I'm having about your experience as a man, the size thing almost makes it more lonely. It almost makes me more viewed as a threat. It almost makes me more marginalized in a way. Like, you are a potential threat. You are dangerous. So, we don't want you around type shit. That's not, it's not a big issue. It's not the biggest issue in my journey as a man, my size, but it has added a layer that only niggas my size could probably understand. It's good and bad, but the bad is something we could only understand. Because imagine being a nigga, but then being a big nigga that a white man look at and be like, oh, well, the first thing I'm going to do is shoot this motherfucker. Because it's not no fighting him. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though that's not even true, but the belief, the way that they look at it is like, why would I fight this nigga when I could just shoot him? You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people, I've seen big guys make the mistake of walking around and like trying to like use their weight to bully people. That's not the way that I've ever seen it. I've never been a bully. I've been bullied before I was this size. I remember being in second grade. I got bullied for a couple weeks. But I was a little kid. I didn't have my size yet. But I've never in my life tried to be a bully. And never in my life have I ever thought my size gives me the right to dog people out. No. Because what I know is that if it come down to it, I'll be the first one that gets shot. I don't look at this shit as like, oh, I'm invincible, I'm a he. Lil Wayne said this shit in the song, niggas think they He-Man, pow pow, the end. What do you think he meant by that? He was talking about musclehead niggas. You would lift all these weights, and now you think you about to just beat everybody's ass. But all it takes is for a nigga to just shoot you, bro. It doesn't matter. That's an equalizer, right? A nigga that stands 5'3" can carry a pistol and kill a nigga that's twice his height. 2 feet taller than him. It don't matter. So I've never walked around feeling like my size gives me a badge, a license to bully, some sort of power over people. But I've also dealt with, like I said, the cons of this size. It almost makes me more of a threat, and it makes people more afraid of me unnecessarily. Because I'm actually a pretty nice guy, man. You know what I'm saying? I try to be. But back to my main point, living as a man, despite, that people preach about this patriarchy, I once bucked up against that point one time and said, well, if it's a patriarchy, how did you have a bunch of black men enslaved under a patriarchy? I said, no, it isn't a patriarchy. It's a white raciarchy. I don't know what, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what to call that. But it's like the patriarchy isn't necessarily the problem. Maybe it is a patriarchy. But what I'm saying is it's the white men that have created these things that we deal with today. Whether it's the wars we have to fight, the wealth disparity, the redlining, the distribution of wealth, the redlining, the capitalistic society that has been built. It all came by way of racism first. One group of people deciding that they were superior to another group of people. They literally fled their country, came to this country, built a new country on the back of slaves. When the slaves were free, they said, okay, you can be free, We're going to lynch you, subjugate you to this area, humiliate you, destroy your family structure through these means, whatever, right? The main root of the problem isn't a patriarchy. The root of the problem is racism. The root of the problem is racism. Patriarchy is a byproduct of that. Because the white man, the way that the white man related to his white wife has nothing to do with me. That was the dynamic they decided. You know what I'm saying? The patriarchy isn't the problem, though. The racism was the problem for America and Europe and Africa. The things that they did in South Africa, all parts of Africa. And Asia, racism is what laid the groundwork for today. Patriarchy followed. It has its own set of problems, but racism is the father of this society. Not patriarchy. Because there was black women slaves and men slaves. I'm not saying, I know black men and men in general were allowed to vote first. I got that. Patriarchy is real. But patriarchy is not the father of America. Racism is. Racism precedes and exceeds all. You know, because arguably, based on the things that I've heard and read and watched, I don't think Africans had a problem with their family structure. You know, I don't think a patriarchy is evil unless it is used for evil. But that goes without saying for anything. Because guess what? There are matriarchies in the world that are also evil. There were matriarchies throughout history that were not evil. My family is like a matriarchy. There is no male lead in our family anymore, really. My uncles would be the candidates, I guess. My father is, but I'm talking about my mom's side of the family. My mom's family has historically been run by women. A couple of my aunties, after my grandma died, you know, of course my grandfather was there. I don't think he was a great leader. I guess he was the leader. He dies. My aunt is the matriarch now. You know, whatever that means. Most things are ran through her. We all meet up at her house. We all check on her. She's like the lead of the family. That's not evil. It's just what it is. I guess it's what works for my family. But if there was a male lead in our family, the word patriarchy isn't evil inherently. I don't think a man running a society or a family or a household is wrong. That's not the problem. The problem is the blatant, overt racism that built everything we are looking at. That's why everything's fucked up. That's why it's man versus woman. Because there's money in it. Capitalism. A byproduct of racism here in America. You know, we walk around as men and we accept that, yeah, okay, so this world is cold, you know. We don't have random strangers most of the time walking up to us genuinely asking us how we doing. It's not easy for us to really make friends because most of the men, especially in black neighborhoods, we view most other men as threats initially. You know, sometimes depending on the men, we know how to disarm and engage in conversation and sort of say, damn, man, you seen that shit on the news last night? Or damn, bro, did you see the Pistons blew them niggas out last night? Then we have a conversation. But I'm telling you, non-verbally, initially, most times, when I walk into a room and there's other men there, the first thing we doing is assessing whether or not they are threats and they're doing the same thing to me. It's always wartime for men. I don't know what it's like for women. But when we walk into the room, we trying to figure out who's going to kill us, who crazy, who's unstable. It's none of that? Okay. Then you start watching motherfuckers. Or you might walk in and say, what's up, y'all? And you see what you get back in response, which kind of gauges how you have to move in this room. Motherfuckers walk in the studio. There's some people you don't know. Hey, what up, though? You try to shake everybody's hand. You might have a nigga that's a little like, give you a little bullshitter handshake. Nigga rolling up. He don't want to talk to you. So you like, okay, immediately as a man, it's always wartime. You check that off in your mind like, okay, this might be one of the niggas I have to shoot. Got it. Could you imagine how incredibly stressful that life is? Again, I'm not talking about what it might be like for women. That's not the point. That's not my life. That's your life as a woman. My only point is, our experience in this motherfucker is one that is cold and loveless. I have my kids the majority of the time. You know, I'm not a single father, but a lot of times it feels like it. You know, I'm not saying I don't have any help. I'm not saying my kid's mom don't do anything, but my kids are with me the majority of the time. I guarantee you that my kids favorite their mother over me anyway. I buy most of the shit. I spend most of the money. I'm the one to get their hair cut. I teach them how to do most of the things that they do. Riding bikes. I teach them about guns. I teach them about girls. I teach them about loving each other. I bet you when it's all said and done, they're still going to love their mom more than they love me. You know, and that's been a historic, that's been like a constant with the dynamic of like kids versus, especially sons versus their father. It almost doesn't matter what the father does. He's always going to be viewed as the enemy somehow because he's the authority, he's the lead. So he's blamed for a lot of shit, you know, when he's around. But I also know men have a long-standing history of doing a bunch of fucked up shit, like being absent fathers, being abusive, and all of that. And a lot of those things can be explained away. I don't want to say, not explained away, but there are reasons for those things. Doesn't make it less harmful, doesn't make it any less important or you know, harm, you know, damaging, whatever. You know, it doesn't make any of that go away. But there's reasons for a lot of things. In my Instagram story today, I posted, typically men cry through anger, not through tears. I've been fighting depression all my life. I cry. I think I cry a lot for a man. I don't cry a whole lot, though. I don't cry a whole lot. Most of the time when I cry, it's involuntary, meaning I'll go to sleep, I'll have a dream like about my kids or about some shit that bothers me from my past or something like that. Traumatic experience, bad memories, and I'll start crying, waking up out of my sleep. That's how I shed most of my tears. But in my waking hours, when I'm in this body, my mind is on, I'm totally protected, got my shields up, my tears don't fall from my eyes. My tears fall from my fists. My tears fall from the volume of my voice, from the harshness of my words. My tears fall through my words. My tears fall in my art. My tears fall in inflicting pain on others. My tears fall out of my penis. My tears fall by fucking hoes. My tears fall when I'm throwing money in a motherfucking strip club. You know what I'm saying? Men cry through a lot of different avenues. And it's typically not from our eyes. We cry by self-destruction. We cry by outer destruction. We cry by distancing ourselves from people that love us because we don't feel loved. We cry by destroying a good thing because it's the only thing we know how to do. We cry through suicide. Just look it up. Men are killing themselves at a much faster rate than women ever have. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's just because men are all just weak? No. Nope. We crying through that pistol. We crying through that shotgun in our mouth. We crying by waking and baking and being high at all times of the day. We crying by overdosing on pills. In the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, we was crying by shooting heroin in our veins. Do you think it's a coincidence that the Black Panthers were attacked and systematically destroyed with heroin and crack? Why do you think they were susceptible to those things? Why do you think that they were weakened and welcoming to those vices? Because being a Black Panther, a revolutionary, is painful and lonely. You don't know if you're right or wrong. You're fighting a fight that seems like no one really gives a fuck except you and your people. The rest of the world is all coming down on top of you. So, of course, Huey P. Newton is smoking crack. He's crying. He's numbing himself. Imagine what type of life that was. To be a Bobby Hutton, a Bobby Seale, whoever. To be a George Jackson, to be a Afeni Shakur, to be an Assata Shakur. Imagine what that feels like. And then you think about the path that they eventually took and the things that they eventually fell to. Not all, but some of them. They fell to drugs. They fell to vices. A lot of them got killed. Some of them killed themselves. Some of them turned snitch or informant. Motherfuckers is out here crying and pleading for help in various different ways. I'm only talking about men right now. I ain't talking about women. I don't know nothing about that. I'm not a woman. But I'm telling you, the reason that men are killing themselves so much more than women is because we crying, bro. It's easy to discount someone else's experience when you are ignorant to it. It's easy to say, well, it's easy for a man to say, well, women ain't got to go through the shit we got to go through. And it's easy for women to say, whatever, nigga, shut up. Men ain't going through nothing. Y'all got all the advantages. Y'all got all the money. Y'all got all the positions of power and all of these things, right? Bro, what niggas have been trying to tell women for so long is that that's not what we feel. And guess what? If I'm being totally honest with you, since 1865 or 1868, how do I put this? Well, I won't even say that far back. I'll say since the 1960s. Since this public discourse has been going on, this open public discourse between white people and black people have been going on. White people have been saying, like, look, I know I'm white. I know you're black. You've been historically wrong. There's racism. You know, there's your civil rights not being respected or granted. No voting rights. Corruption, sabotage, all the things that black people have to deal with for hundreds of years now. But white people have been saying, as of late, like, I know I'm white, but we suffer too, right? In our own ways. We not all rich. We don't have it all easy. As a black man, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I didn't want to hear that shit. I still don't want to hear that shit. Because, okay, it could be true, but still shut the fuck up, right? But my point is, at some point, I had to acknowledge and recognize the fact that as Americans, as human beings, we all suffer. White people are not exempt because they are white in America. They have advantages, absolutely. Even though they don't know it, it still does not invalidate their experiences. And I think the acknowledgement, the recognizing of that is humane. It is only right. So for instance, you know, just so I can explain this some more, I'm not saying me talking to white people at large, understanding that they also suffer means that as a black man, I forgive them. No. What I'm talking about is more micro shit, right? As a black man who has had white coworkers, me, a black man, talking to a white man, trying to explain to me, like, bro, I'm broke as hell. I know I'm white. I don't got no gas in my car. I'm broke as hell. Okay, got it. So my only responsibility is to be able to empathize, relate, and listen to this individual white man tell me that he can relate to some of my struggles and that his life isn't peaches just because he is white. I can accept that. I understand now. On an individual basis, I can look at another white man in his eyes and say, I understand. You struggle too. Got it. Now, I am not the Congressional Black Caucus. I am not all of black people as a whole. But black people as a whole is probably, and with the little, you know, my experience as a black man and all the black people I know, the way that we look at it as a group ain't got nothing to do with these micro interactions. Black people looking at white people as a whole is that y'all have had generational wealth, lots of families, great head starts that we have not had, the respect of the law in most cases that we do not get, the advantages of financial tools, credit, forgiveness, leeway, all of these things that white people have collectively benefited from makes black people collectively go say, man, get the fuck out of here. But I'm just saying, on a grassroots level, I can connect from one man to the other, regardless of race, and understand that we are probably all suffering. Man to woman too. We all suffer. But this shit, being a man, is not what you think it is. And just like I just said, the collection of women could probably look at men and say, shut the fuck up. Because y'all probably caused all the shit. Y'all was the one that decided all this shit that y'all suffering from. But that wasn't me. I don't work for Congress. I wasn't here 200 years ago. I did not build America. My ancestors did. I didn't draw up the Constitution. I was just born here just 30 years ago. I just got here. So my experience as a man has nothing to do with the patriarchy. My experience as a man, I mean, it does, but my experience as a man is largely consistent of suffering and lovelessness. We all got our perspectives, but that doesn't mean that mine isn't real. I never even introduced the episode. I don't care. This is my show. I do whatever I want. This is Streams episode 20. Appreciate you for listening, especially if you made it all the way here. I'll be back whenever I come back. Peace. I really appreciate you, though, for real. Peace.